3 seconds. That was the difference between a billion-dollar empire and a shallow grave in the Nevada desert. When you operate in the shadows, your life isn't measured in years. It's measured in server uptime. Devon Valenti thought he was untouchable. He thought his system was a fortress. But he forgot that even the strongest castles have cracks. And sometimes, the only person who can save a king is the one invisible enough to clean up his mess. A spilled bucket of water, a line of corrupt code, and a janitor who knew too much. This isn't just a romance. It's a war for survival. Listen closely. The server room on the 40th floor of the Valenti Tower was usually colder than a morgue, kept at a precise 60 degrees to preserve the humming banks of processors that lined the walls like black monoliths. Today, however, the room felt suffocating. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the terrified sweat of 3 senior technicians who were currently typing for their lives. Devon Valenti stood by the glass wall overlooking the Chicago skyline. He didn't look at the technicians. He didn't have to. The frantic clicking of mechanical keyboards told him everything he needed to know. "Report," Devon said. His voice was low, a baritone rumble that vibrated through the floorboards. He adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke charcoal suit. He was a man of sharp angles and terrifying stillness, with eyes the color of burnt espresso and a reputation that made grown men check under their cars for explosives. It's the Cayman node, sir," the lead technician, a man named Gary, stammered. Gary was wearing a shirt that had been crisp this morning, but was now clinging to his back. "The transfer to the Volkov Syndicate. It stalled at 99%. Devon turned slowly. "Stalled?" "The handshake protocol failed," Gary said, his fingers flying across the terminal. "We're getting a fatal exception error. The funds are in limbo. If we don't complete the handshake in—" He glanced at the red countdown timer projected on the main screen. 4 minutes. The system initiates a failsafe. The money bounces back to the source accounts, the accounts that are supposed to be invisible. Devon walked over to the main console. On the screen, a progress bar sat frozen, mocking them. "If that money bounces back," Devon said, his voice terrifyingly calm, "the IRS, Interpol, and the FBI get a ping instantly. And Nikolai Volkov will assume I am stealing his $300 million. He is currently sitting in my conference room downstairs, waiting for a confirmation text. We're trying to bypass the firewall, sir, but the code, it's rewriting itself. I've never seen anything like it. It's like a hydra. We cut one head, 2 more appear," Gary cried out, panic rising in his throat. Devon pulled a silver lighter from his pocket, flicking the lid open and closed. Clink, clink. The sound was a metronome counting down their execution. This system, the Iron Ledger, cost him $50 million to build. It was supposed to be impenetrable. "You have 3 minutes, Devon said. "Fix it, or I throw you through that window." Gary typed harder. The other 2 techs were hyperventilating. In the corner of the room, invisible to the panic, Violet Evans dipped her mop into the grey water of her yellow bucket. She squeezed the excess water into the wringer with a harsh squelch. Violet was 23, though the dark circles under her eyes made her look older. She wore the standard-issue grey jumpsuit of the janitorial staff, 2 sizes too big, hiding a frame that was thin from a diet of instant noodles and anxiety. Her brown hair was pulled back in a messy bun, hidden under a cap. To the men in the room, she was furniture. Less than furniture. She was background noise. She pushed the mop across the polished concrete floor, moving closer to the server racks. She kept her head down, but her eyes, sharp and green, darted sideways towards the monitors. Error 404. Node sync failure. Recursive loop detected at port 8080. Violet bit her lip. She recognized the pattern. It wasn't a glitch. It wasn't a hardware failure. It was a syntax error in the routing script. Someone had missed a semicolon on line 4000 of the executable shell, causing the loop. It was a rookie mistake, or a deliberate sabotage, 2 minutes, Gary screamed. It's not accepting the override. The system thinks it's under attack. It is under attack, you incompetent fool, Devon snarled, stepping closer. By your stupidity. Violet moved the wet floor sign. She was 5 feet away from the main console. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Don't do it, Vi. Just keep mopping. Keep your head down. You're just a ghost. If you touch that keyboard, the life you've built, the hiding, the safety, it's over. But she looked at the timer. 1:45. If that timer hit 0, this building would be swarmed by federal agents. Her fake ID, her cash under the table job, her tiny apartment in the bad part of town, it would all be scrutinized. She would be found. And the people she was running from were far worse than the police. She squeezed the mop handle so hard her knuckles turned white. "Try a hard reset," one of the junior techs yelled. "No," Violet's voice cut through the room. The silence that followed was absolute. The clicking of keyboards stopped. Devon Valenti turned his head, his eyes landing on the girl with the mop. It took him a second to process that the sound had come from the janitor. "Excuse me?" Devon asked, his tone dangerously soft. Violet froze. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But she straightened her spine. She let go of the mop. It clattered against the bucket. "Don't do a hard reset," Violet said, her voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. "If you reset the server while the handshake is pending, you'll corrupt the blockchain ledger. The money won't just bounce back. It will evaporate. $300 million gone into the digital void." Gary, the lead tech, stood up, his face red. "Who the hell are you? Get out." "Sir, security let the cleaning lady in during a level 5 op." "Shut up," Devon said. He didn't look at Gary. He looked at Violet. He analyzed her like a predator analyzing prey. "Go on." "It's not a hardware issue," Violet said, walking towards the console. The junior techs stepped back as if she were radioactive. "Look at the command line. It's looping because of a syntax conflict in the back-end script. The firewall is rejecting the Volkov key because the timestamp is off by 3 milliseconds. It thinks the request is coming from the future." "That's impossible," Gary spat. "The clocks are atomic synced." "Not the internal clock of the receiving node," Violet said. She was at the keyboard now. She could smell Devon's cologne, sandalwood and expensive scotch. It was intoxicating and terrifying. The loop is protecting the system. You have to bypass the timestamp check manually. "We can't," Gary sneered. "The terminal is locked down." "It's only locked for the GUI," Violet murmured. She looked up at Devon. Her eyes met his. For a second, the world narrowed down to the two of them. "I can fix it, but you have to tell your gorilla here to move." Devon stared at her. 0:58 seconds remained on the clock. A billion things ran through his mind. Security breach, mole, insanity. But he saw something in her eyes. It wasn't fear of the tech. It was the calm focus of a master. Devon gestured to Gary. "Move." "Sir, you can't be serious." "Move!" Devon roared. Gary scrambled out of the chair. Violet sat down. The leather was still warm. Her fingers hovered over the mechanical keys. They were DAS Keyboard 4 professionals. Blank keycaps. No letters. Only someone who knew the layout by heart could use it. Violet took a breath, and then she began to play. The sound was different. When Gary typed, it was a frantic, staccato clatter. When Violet typed, it was a fluid, rolling thunder. Her fingers were a blur. She didn't look at the keys. She stared intently at the black screen, her eyes darting across lines of neon green code that scrolled faster than the human eye could read. Open terminal. Sudo access. Bypass authorization. "She's accessing the root directory," Gary shouted. "She's going to wipe the drive." "Quiet," Devon ordered. He was standing directly behind her now, his hand resting on the back of the chair. Violet could feel the heat radiating from him. "Come on," Violet whispered to herself. "Where are you? There." She found the timestamp discrepancy. It was buried deep in the kernel, hidden under layers of encryption. It wasn't an accident. Someone had placed a delay loop there, a logic bomb. Command, override. Force sync. The screen flashed red. Access denied. "It's blocked," the junior tech groaned. 20 seconds. "I see it," Violet snapped. Her hands flew. She wasn't just coding. She was battling the machine. She opened a secondary window and began writing a script in Python on the fly, a brute force algorithm to trick the server into thinking the time was correct. 15 seconds. "Almost there," Violet muttered. 10 seconds. "Sir, we need to pull the plug," Gary yelled, reaching for the physical power cable. Devon grabbed Gary's wrist, twisting it painfully. "Let her work." 5, the automated voice of the system announced. Violet hit the final string of code. Enter. 4. The screen blinked. 3. The red progress bar turned yellow. 2. It turned green. Handshake complete. Transfer successful. 1. The countdown vanished. The room was suddenly bathed in the cool blue light of the standby screen. The fans in the server towers spun down from their jet engine whine to a gentle hum. Silence returned to the 40th floor. Violet slumped in the chair, her chest heaving. Her hands were trembling now. The adrenaline was crashing. She stared at the words, "Transfer successful." She had just laundered $300 million for the most dangerous crime syndicate in North America. She stood up abruptly. I have to finish the hallway." She turned to leave, keeping her head down, reaching for her mop bucket. "Stop!" The single word clamped around her ankle like a shackle. Violet froze. She didn't turn around. "I really need to get back to work, sir. My supervisor checks the cameras." "Gary," Devon said, his voice flat. "Leave us. Take Tweedledee and Tweedledum with you. But, sir, get out, and Gary, you're fired. If I see you in Chicago, after sunset, you won't see the sunrise." The technicians scrambled over each other to exit the room. The heavy steel door clicked shut, the electronic lock engaging with a heavy thud. Now, it was just the king and the cleaner. "Turn around," Devon commanded. Violet turned slowly. She kept her eyes on his tie knot. She couldn't look him in the face. Devon walked toward her. He moved with the grace of a panther. He stopped inches from her. He reached out and 2 fingers hooked under her chin, forcing her to look up. "Who are you?" he asked. "Violet." "Just Violet," she whispered. "Violet," he tasted the name. "And where did Violet, the janitor who makes $12 an hour, learn to code in C++ and bypass a military-grade firewall in under 45 seconds? I watch videos online. Tutorials, in my spare time." Devon let out a dark, humorless laugh. "Tutorials. You expect me to believe you learned how to navigate a decentralized blockchain ledger on YouTube?" He stepped back, crossing his arms. The playful curiosity was gone, replaced by the cold calculation of a boss. That wasn't just coding. That was instinct. And you didn't just fix a glitch. You found a logic bomb. Violet's eyes widened. He had noticed. "Someone tried to sabotage the transfer," Devon said, watching her reaction closely. "And you knew exactly where to look. Which implies one of 2 things. Either you are the one who planted the bomb, and you fixed it to save your own skin." He took a step closer, towering over her. "Or you are something far more valuable than a janitor, and far more dangerous." "I didn't plant it," Violet said quickly. "I swear, I just saw the loop pattern. I have a memory for patterns. Is that so?" Devon walked to the door and punched a code into the keypad. The light on the lock turned red. Deadbolt engaged. Violet's heart stopped. "What are you doing?" "You just saved me $300 million and prevented a war with the Russians," Devon said. "But in doing so, you saw the transaction details. You saw the account numbers. You saw the names." He turned back to her. "In my world, Violet, witnesses are liabilities. Liabilities are removed." Violet backed up until her legs hit the server rack. "I won't say anything, I swear. I just want to mop floors and go home." "No one wants to mop floors," Devon countered. "People mop floors because they are hiding. Who are you hiding from, Violet?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Devon pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. "Bring the car around and tell Volkov the deal is done. Then send security to the server room. I have a guest." He hung up and looked at her. "You're not going home tonight, Violet. Until I find out who you really are, you belong to me." Violet looked at the locked door, then at the man who owned half the city. She calculated the odds of escape. 0. She had fixed the system, but she had broken her own cover. The invisible girl was finally seen, and the spotlight was blinding. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent, save for the hum of the high-speed lift rising through the spine of the Valenti Tower. Devon stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the digital floor numbers climbing. 50, 60, 70. Violet stood in the corner, clutching her dirty canvas backpack to her chest. The smell of floor wax and stale water clinging to her jumpsuit seemed violently out of place in the leather and chrome interior of the private lift. When the doors slid open on the 85th floor, Violet hesitated. She wasn't stepping into an apartment. She was stepping into a fortress of glass and marble floating above the city lights. "Move," Devon said, walking out without looking back. Violet followed. The floor was Italian marble, cold enough to feel through the thin soles of her worn-out sneakers. The living space was vast, minimalist, and terrifyingly masculine. A black grand piano sat in one corner, untouched. A wall of wine bottles reached the ceiling. Devon walked to a mahogany desk that dominated the center of the room. He threw a file folder onto the surface. It landed with a heavy slap. "Sit," he commanded, pointing to a velvet armchair. Violet sat on the edge of the seat, careful not to let her dirty clothes touch the fabric more than necessary. "While we were coming up," Devon began, pouring himself a glass of amber liquid from a crystal decanter, "my head of intelligence, Enzo, ran your prints. He ran your face recognition. He even ran a voice print analysis from the security footage in the server room." He took a sip, turning to face her. The city lights framed his silhouette, making him look like a dark god ruling over the chaos below. "And do you know what he found?" Violet swallowed hard. "Nothing?" "Nothing," Devon repeated. "No birth certificate, no social security number, no high school transcripts. Violet Evans popped into existence 3 months ago in a rundown apartment in the South Side. Before that, a void." He walked around the desk, leaning against the edge, invading her personal space. In the digital age, it takes a massive amount of effort to be nobody. It takes skill. It takes money. Or it takes fear. He tilted his head. "Who is chasing you, Violet?" "I have debts," she lied. The lie came easily, practiced 1,000 times. "My ex-boyfriend. He got into trouble with loan sharks. I had to run." Devon laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "Loan sharks? You rewrite kernel-level code to escape loan sharks. Don't insult my intelligence." He slammed his hand onto the armrest of her chair, boxing her in. Violet flinched, pressing herself back. "You look at a screen and you see the Matrix," Devon hissed, his face inches from hers. "I saw you. You didn't just type. You conducted a symphony. You're a weapon, a cyber weapon. And right now, someone else's fingerprints are on the trigger. I need to know whose." "I don't work for anyone," Violet said, her voice trembling but her gaze steady. "I'm just trying to survive." Devon stared at her for a long, agonizing minute. He was looking for the lie. He saw fear, yes, but he also saw a steel core. She was like a diamond wrapped in rags, unbreakable under pressure. He stood up, straightening his suit jacket. "Fine, keep your secrets. For now." He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Enzo, bring the tablet." A moment later, a side door opened. Enzo, a man built like a refrigerator with a scar running through his left eyebrow, walked in. He glared at Violet with open hostility. To him, she was a security risk that should have been eliminated in the basement. Enzo handed a tablet to Devon. "This," Devon said, handing the device to Violet, "is a test." Violet looked at the screen. It was an encrypted file dump. Thousands of lines of gibberish. "My competitors, the Triad, have been moving shipments through the port using a ghost container system. We know they're doing it, but we can't prove how they are bypassing customs digital logs. My best team has been trying to crack this encryption for 3 weeks." Devon checked his platinum watch. "It's midnight. You have until sunrise. If you crack it, you have a job, a protection detail, a life." "And if I don't?" Violet asked quietly. Devon didn't answer. He didn't have to. The silence said enough. If you aren't useful, you're a loose end. "Enzo will show you to the guest suite. It has a computer. It has Wi-Fi that is monitored. If you try to send a message out, if you try to log into an email, if you even search for a flight ticket, the system locks down, and Enzo throws you off the balcony. Do we understand each other?" Violet took the tablet. Her hands were steady now. This was code. She understood code. People were unpredictable. Code was logical. "I understand," she said. "Get her cleaned up," Devon ordered Enzo, turning his back to look out the window again. "She smells like bleach and desperation." Violet stood up. As she followed the hulking enforcer towards the hallway, she glanced back at Devon. He stood alone against the glass, a king in his high tower, surrounded by enemies. He needed her, he just didn't know how much yet. The guest suite was larger than her entire apartment. Enzo shoved her inside and pointed to a sleek, high-performance workstation set up on a glass desk. "Don't get cute," Enzo grunted. "I'll be right outside the door." The lock clicked. Violet was alone. She didn't look at the bed with its Egyptian cotton sheets. She didn't look at the marble bathroom with the soaking tub. She walked straight to the computer, sat down, and cracked her knuckles. 3 weeks, she whispered to herself, looking at the encryption on the tablet. Amateurs. She began to type. The sun was just beginning to bleed a bruised, purple light over Lake Michigan when Devon unlocked the door to the guest suite. He expected to find her sleeping, or crying, or pacing in panic. Instead, he found Violet asleep at the desk, her head resting on her folded arms. The monitors were glowing with a complex web of shipping routes and bank transfers. Devon walked over quietly. In sleep, she looked younger. The lines of stress on her forehead had smoothed out. Her messy bun was unraveling, strands of chestnut hair falling over her face. She looked harmless. But the screen told a different story. Devon tapped the spacebar. The screensaver vanished, revealing a map of the port of Chicago. A single red line traced a path from a container ship named the Leviathan to a shell company warehouse in the industrial district. "Wake up," Devon said, kicking the leg of her chair gently. Violet jerked awake, gasping. Her hand instinctively flew to a sharpened pencil she had placed on the desk, a makeshift shiv. She stopped inches from Devon's hand. They stared at each other. The violence in her reflex surprised him. "Easy, Tiger," Devon murmured, eyeing the pencil. "I see you've made yourself at home." Violet dropped the pencil, rubbing her eyes. "Did I solve it?" Devon looked at the screen. "You didn't just solve it. You found the root administrator access for their entire logistics network." He scrolled through the data. "You found the ghost containers. They're mislabeling heroin as agricultural fertilizer to bypass the scanners." He looked down at her. The respect in his eyes was grudging, but it was there. "You did in 6 hours what a team of MIT graduates couldn't do in a month." "Your team thinks linearly," Violet said, her voice raspy with sleep. She stood up, stretching. Her back popped. "They were trying to break the encryption wall. I just looked for the side door. The customs officer's iPad. Someone cloned it." "Brilliant," Devon said, "and dangerous. Does this mean I get to live?" "It means," Devon said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a black credit card, "that you need clothes that don't smell like a mop bucket. We have a meeting in 2 hours. We? You're my new personal consultant. You stick to me like glue. Where I go, you go. I don't have anything to wear. Enzo brought some things. They're in the closet. Dress the part. No one respects a janitor, Violet, but everyone fears the woman standing at the right hand of the devil. Devon turned to leave, but stopped at the door. And Violet? Good work. For the first time in years, Violet felt a flicker of pride. Not the fear of being caught, but the satisfaction of being recognized. An hour later, Violet Evans was gone. In her place stood a woman who looked like she belonged in the pages of Vogue, albeit a dark, edgy version. She wore a tailored black blazer, slim trousers, and boots with a heel sharp enough to puncture a lung. Her hair was washed and blow-dried straight, framing a face that was striking now that the grime was gone. She walked into the main living area. Devon was waiting, drinking espresso. He stopped mid-sip when he saw her. He didn't say anything. He just looked her up and down, his dark eyes lingering for a fraction of a second too long. "Better," was all he said. "Where are we going?" Violet asked, feeling self-conscious in the expensive fabric. "The warehouse," Devon said, holstering a gun beneath his jacket. "We're going to pay the Triad a visit, and you're going to shut down their operation from the parking lot." The ride to the industrial district was tense. Enzo drove the armored SUV. Devon sat in the back with Violet, working on his phone. "Why me?" Violet asked suddenly. "You have money. You can hire the best hackers in the world. Mercenaries." Devon locked his phone and looked at her. "Mercenaries are loyal to the highest bidder. If someone offers them double, they put a bullet in my head. You? You have no one. You're hiding. As long as I keep you safe from whatever is chasing you, you're loyal to me. Fear is a stronger leash than greed." Violet looked out the window. He was right. And that made her hate him a little. But it also made her feel safe. For the first time, a monster was standing in front of her, instead of hunting her. "We're here," Enzo grunted. The warehouse was massive, rusted, and seemingly abandoned. But Violet's phone, which Devon had given her, a secure, encrypted device, was picking up massive spikes in data usage. "They're inside," Violet said, tapping the screen. "I'm picking up a localized server. They're scrubbing the logs right now. They know we're onto them." "Do it," Devon said. "Crash it." Violet's fingers flew across the mobile interface. "I need to get closer. The signal is weak." "Enzo, drive through the gate," Devon ordered. "Boss, that's a steel gate," Enzo argued. "Drive through it." The SUV surged forward, the engine roaring. Metal screamed as the heavy bumper of the armored vehicle smashed through the chain-link fence. They skidded to a halt in the center of the lot. Gunfire erupted immediately. Ping, ping! Bullets sparked off the bulletproof glass. Violet screamed, ducking down. "Keep working!" Devon yelled, pulling his gun. He opened the door, using it as a shield, and returned fire. The bang, bang, bang of his pistol was deafening. Violet huddled on the floor of the car, the tablet glowing in the gloom. Panic clawed at her throat. This wasn't coding. This was war. "Focus, focus, Vi. Just find the IP address." "I'm in!" she yelled over the noise of the shootout. "I'm in their system!" "Shut down the power!" Devon shouted, reloading his clip. "Kill the lights!" Violet executed the script. Instantly, the massive warehouse went dark. The floodlights popped and died. Inside, the hum of machinery stopped. The gunfire ceased as the Triad soldiers were plunged into blindness. "Enzo, move in!" Devon commanded into his earpiece to his tactical team that had just pulled up behind them. As the Valenti soldiers swarmed the building, Devon leaned back into the car. He was breathing hard, a smear of gunpowder on his cheek. He looked at Violet, huddled on the floor but still holding the tablet like a lifeline. He reached out a hand. "Get up," he said. His voice was rough, adrenaline-soaked. Violet took his hand. He pulled her up, but he didn't let go. He pulled her out of the car, into the cool morning air. The smell of cordite was heavy. "You did good," Devon said, staring at the dark warehouse. "You handled yourself." I was terrified," Violet admitted, her knees shaking. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Devon looked at her, his gaze dropping to her lips, then back to her eyes. The intensity was palpable. The chaos around them seemed to fade. "Boss!" Enzo shouted from the warehouse doorway. "You need to see this." Devon broke the contact, his mask of command sliding back into place. "Stay here. Stay in the car." He walked away toward the warehouse. Violet sat back in the leather seat, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm. She looked down at the tablet. She hadn't closed the connection yet. She could still see the file directory of the Triad server. Curiosity, her fatal flaw, took over. She tapped on a folder marked Received_Data. She opened the most recent file. It was a transfer order, but it wasn't for drugs, and it wasn't from the Triad. The transfer originated from an account labeled Valenti_internal_security. Violet's blood ran cold. The Triad hadn't stolen the shipping codes. They had been given them by someone inside Devon's organization. She scrolled to the authorization signature. It was encrypted, but the digital fingerprint was familiar. She recognized the syntax style. It was clumsy, brutish code. It matched the syntax error she had fixed in the server room yesterday. The sabotage wasn't from the outside. The traitor was right next to Devon. Violet looked up through the windshield. She saw Enzo walking beside Devon, talking fast, gesturing with his hands. Enzo, the head of security. Enzo, who had tried to throw her out of the server room. Enzo, who had been unable to crack the code for 3 weeks. Enzo was the rat, and Devon was walking right into the dark warehouse with him. Violet threw the car door open. She didn't think. She didn't calculate. She just ran. "Devon!" she screamed, her voice tearing through the silence. "Devon, it's a trap!" Enzo spun around, his hand going for his gun. The scream tore through the air, sharper than the gunfire that had just ceased. "Devon, it's a trap!" Devon Valenti did not question the girl. He did not hesitate. In the world he occupied, hesitation was a death sentence. As Enzo spun around, raising his Glock 19 towards the car, Devon was already moving. He dove not for cover, but across the open space between the car door and the pavement, tackling Violet back into the footwell of the SUV. Bang! Bang! 2 rounds shattered the windshield where Violet's head had been a second earlier. Shards of safety glass rained down like diamonds on the leather seats. "Enzo!" Devon roared, his voice filled with the fury of a betrayal so deep it felt like a physical wound. He blindly fired 3 shots over the doorframe toward his right-hand man. Enzo didn't stick around to trade fire. He knew Devon's aim was legendary. Instead, the traitor fired a single shot into a red barrel sitting near the warehouse entrance, a barrel marked with a flammability diamond. The explosion was concussive. A wave of heat and orange flame rolled outward, knocking the wind out of Devon. The warehouse entrance collapsed in a shower of twisted metal and concrete, sealing Enzo inside, or allowing him to escape through the back tunnels he undoubtedly knew existed. "Drive!" Devon shouted at the empty driver's seat, then realized Enzo was the driver. He swore viciously in Italian. He grabbed the wheel from the passenger side, climbing over the center console while keeping Violet pinned down with one hand. "Stay down!" He slammed the SUV into reverse. The tires shrieked, burning rubber as the heavy vehicle spun 180 degrees. Another explosion rocked the warehouse, sending a plume of black smoke into the gray morning sky. Devon gunned the engine, tearing out of the industrial lot just as the sirens of the Chicago PD began to wail in the distance. He drove with mechanical precision, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his jaw set so hard a muscle twitched beneath his ear. Violet slowly sat up, brushing glass from her hair. She was shaking violently. The adrenaline crash was hitting her hard. He tried to kill you," she whispered. "No," Devon corrected, his eyes glued to the rearview mirror. "He tried to kill you. He missed me on purpose. He needed you dead because you saw the code." He took a sharp left, navigating the labyrinth of alleys to lose any potential tail. "Show me," Devon demanded, his voice dangerously low. Show me the proof." Violet's hands were trembling so badly she dropped the tablet twice before she could unlock it. She navigated to the log file she had uncovered. "Here," she said, holding it up. "The transfer authorization. It's signed with a distinct cryptographic key. It's clumsy, brute force coding. The same syntax I saw in the server room loop. It matches the IP address of Enzo's personal terminal in the penthouse." Devon glanced at the screen, then back at the road. The evidence was irrefutable. Enzo, the man he had pulled from the gutters of Naples, the man he had treated like a brother for 10 years, was selling him out to the Triad. "He wasn't just stealing money," Violet said, her mind racing as she connected the dots. "The logic bomb yesterday. It wasn't meant to fail. It was meant to freeze the system long enough for him to copy the master ledger. When I fixed it, I locked him out before the download was complete." Devon hit the steering wheel with his palm. "That's why he wanted you gone. You didn't just fix a glitch, Violet. You cut off his payday." The SUV merged onto the highway, blending in with the morning rush-hour traffic. The anonymity of the crowd was their only shield now. "Where are we going?" Violet asked. "Back to the tower?" "No," Devon said darkly. "Enzo controls security at the tower. He has my biometric codes. He has the surveillance feed. If we go there, we're walking into a kill box. The penthouse is burned. My accounts will be frozen by the time he leaks the ledger." He looked at her. For the first time, the mask of the untouchable mafia, Don, cracked. He looked tired. He looked human. "We have nowhere to go," he admitted. "Every safe house I have, Enzo knows about. Every ally I have, Enzo has a file on." Violet looked at the man who owned the city, now reduced to a fugitive in his own car. She looked at the tablet in her lap. She bit her lip. "Not everywhere," she said softly. Devon glanced at her. "What?" "I have a place," Violet said. "It's off the grid. No cameras, no digital footprint. It's where I go when I need to disappear." Devon raised an eyebrow. "A janitor's apartment?" "No," Violet said, her voice firm. "My bunker." Devon looked at her, really looked at her, realizing again that he knew absolutely nothing about the girl sitting next to him. "Lead the way," he said. The bunker was located in the basement of a defunct textile factory in the Rust Belt district, miles away from the gleaming skyscrapers of downtown. The building was a hollow shell, covered in graffiti and surrounded by razor wire. Devon parked the SUV inside the loading bay, hidden from the street. "This way," Violet said, using a heavy iron key to open a nondescript service door. They descended 2 flights of concrete stairs into total darkness. Violet clapped her hands twice. Clap, clap. Motion sensors triggered, and a strip of warm LED lights illuminated the space. Devon stopped in his tracks. He expected a mattress on the floor and a hot plate. What he saw was a high-tech command center that rivaled his own. The basement was climate-controlled. One wall was entirely covered in server racks, their lights blinking in a hypnotic rhythm. A massive curved monitor setup dominated the center of the room. There was a small living area, a cot, a mini-fridge, and a bookshelf filled with paperbacks. But the technology was worth millions. "Who are you?" Devon asked, his voice echoing in the concrete chamber. He walked over to the server racks. "This is military-grade hardware, liquid cooling, quantum encryption nodes. You can't buy this on Amazon, Violet." Violet locked the heavy steel door behind them and engaged 3 deadbolts. She walked over to the desk and tossed her keys down. She didn't answer immediately. She went to a first aid kit mounted on the wall. "Sit down," she told him. "You're bleeding." Devon looked down. He hadn't noticed, but a shard of glass from the windshield had sliced his forearm. Blood was dripping onto the concrete. He sat on the edge of the cot. Violet pulled up a stool, cleaned the wound with antiseptic, and began to stitch it up. Her hands, usually flying across a keyboard, were gentle and precise with the needle. "You saved my life today," Devon said, watching her work. The smell of her hair, rainwater and cheap shampoo, filled his senses. "Twice." "I was saving myself," Violet murmured, not meeting his eyes. If Enzo killed you, he would have killed me next. Bullshit, Devon said softly. He reached out with his good hand, tilting her chin up so she had to look at him. You could have run when the shooting started. You warned me. Why? Violet stared into his dark eyes. The connection between them was electric, charged with the danger they had just survived. Because you're the only one who can stop him, she said. And because you didn't look at me like I was a ghost. You saw me. Devon's thumb brushed her cheek. The moment hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. He leaned in just an inch. Violet's breath hitched. Then she pulled away, standing up abruptly. I'm not Violet Evans, she said, her back to him. Devon remained silent, waiting. My name is Elena Hale. Devon froze. The name hit him like a physical blow. Hale? As in Arthur Hale? Arthur Hale was my father, she said, turning around. Her eyes were wet. The architect of the Silk Road 2.0, the man who wrote the skeleton key algorithm, the code that can unlock any banking SWIFT system in the world. Devon stood up slowly. The legends say he died in a car accident in Zurich 5 years ago. It wasn't an accident, Elena said bitterly. The syndicate found him. They wanted the key. He wouldn't give it to them, so they cut his brake lines. She walked to the servers, running her hand along the cool metal. I was in the car. I survived. I took his hard drives. I took the key, and I've been running ever since. The FBI wants me. The cartels want me. The Russians want me. And now, Enzo wants me. Devon processed this. The puzzle pieces slammed into place. That's why you're so good, he whispered. You were trained by the god of cryptography himself. I am the key, Devon, she said, her voice trembling. My father didn't write the algorithm down. He taught it to me. It's in my head. If Enzo captures me, he can drain every bank account from Tokyo to New York. He can crash the global economy. He can become a king. Devon walked over to her. He didn't look at her with greed. He didn't look at her like a prize to be won. He looked at her with a fierce, protective intensity that made her knees weak. He won't touch you, Devon vowed. I will burn this city to the ground before I let him lay a hand on you. You don't understand, Elena said. Enzo isn't working alone. He didn't have the brains to find me. He's just the muscle. She typed a command into her console. The massive screens flared to life. I've been tracking the signal spikes since the warehouse, she said. Enzo is communicating with a server in the Cayman Islands, but the signal is bouncing through a proxy. She pointed to a logo on the screen. It was a stylized hawk gripping a globe. Devon's face went pale. The Obsidian Group, he muttered. Mercenaries, ex-CIA, private contractors who topple governments for fun. They hired Enzo to destabilize your organization, Elena explained. They knew you were the only thing keeping the Chicago underworld in check. If you fall, chaos reigns. And in chaos, they can move their assets unseen. And they want the key, Devon realized. They want me, Elena said, and now they know I'm with you. Suddenly, a red light began to flash on the console. A siren wailed, a low, mournful sound. Proximity alert. Perimeter breached, Elena gasped. They found us. How did they find us? This place is a dead zone. Devon checked his pockets. He pulled out his phone, the one he thought was secure. The screen was black, but a tiny red light blinked near the charging port. Enzo, Devon growled, crushing the phone in his hand. He bugged my personal device. He knew I'd survive. He wanted me to lead him to you. On the security monitors, black SUVs were pulling up to the abandoned factory. Men in tactical gear were spilling out, moving with military precision. They weren't street thugs. They were death squads. There are too many of them, Elena cried, watching the screens. We're trapped. Devon checked his gun. He had 1 magazine left, 15 rounds. He looked at Elena. He grabbed her shoulders. Is there a back way out? There's a drainage tunnel. It leads to the river. But it's flooded. We'd have to swim. Can you swim? Yes. Good. Devon walked to the server rack. Destroy it. All of it. What? Elena stared at him. This is my life's work. This is my father's legacy. If they get these servers, they get the data, Devon said, the sounds of boots thudding on the floor above them echoing down. Burn it, Elena. We can rebuild, but only if we're alive. Elena looked at the blinking lights. Then she looked at Devon. She saw the resolve in his eyes. He was ready to die for her. The least she could do was let go of the past to have a future with him. She typed a command. Execute Protocol 0. Overloading the cores, she whispered. They'll melt down in 60 seconds. Go! Devon grabbed her hand. They ran toward the back of the basement, toward a rusted grate that smelled of rot and damp earth. Behind them, the servers began to whine, the sound rising to a scream. Boom! The heavy steel door of the bunker was blown off its hinges. Smoke filled the room. Clear left, clear right, voices shouted. Devon kicked the grate open. Into the water, now! Elena jumped. The water was freezing, black as oil. Devon followed, splashing down beside her just as the tactical team breached the server room. Target is fleeing, a soldier yelled. Containment team, cut them off at the river. As Devon and Elena let the current drag them into the darkness of the tunnel, a massive explosion rocked the foundation of the building behind them. The servers had detonated. The fire was erasing Elena Hale from existence once again. But this time, she wasn't running alone. She was gripping the hand of the devil himself, and for the first time in 5 years, she wasn't afraid of the dark. The Chicago River was a ribbon of liquid ice. When Devon and Elena hauled themselves onto the muddy bank under the Wells Street Bridge, they were shivering violently, their skin pale and clothes heavy with freezing water. But there was no time to freeze. Stash, Devon chattered, teeth clicking. 3 blocks, garage, dry clothes and weapons. They moved like shadows through the sleeping city, fueled by a cold, hard determination. In the dusty privacy of a rented garage, they stripped off the wet layers. Devon unlocked the trunk of a vintage Mustang, revealing tactical gear and a cache of weapons. As he pulled on a Kevlar vest, he looked at Elena. Enzo thinks we're dead, he said, checking the slide of his Sig Sauer. He'll be at the tower, finalizing the sale to Obsidian. We can't walk in the front door. Elena closed her eyes, visualizing the Valenti Tower, not as a building, but as a living organism. She knew its veins and arteries better than anyone. The HVAC shafts, she said, eyes snapping open. I mopped the ventilation control room on the 30th floor last week. There's a manual override for the service elevator meant for fire crews. It bypasses the security grid. Devon smirked, a dangerous glint returning to his eyes. The janitor breaks us in. Get me to the 85th floor server room, Elena vowed, pulling on a black turtleneck. And I won't just stop the transfer. I'll use the skeleton key to trace the Obsidian Group's offshore accounts and drain them dry. I'm taking back my life. Underscore, 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 underscore. The ascent was grueling. They scaled the fire escape to the 3rd floor, then cut into the ventilation system. It was a claustrophobic maze of aluminum and dust. Elena led the way, navigating by memory, until they dropped silently into the service corridor of the 85th floor. The air here smelled of expensive leather and betrayal. Devon silenced the 2 guards at the double doors with terrifying efficiency, dragging their unconscious bodies into a linen closet. He pressed his ear to the mahogany wood of the main office. The transfer is at 80%. Enzo's voice floated through, thick with arrogance. Tell the board the Valenti era is over. Chicago is ours. Just make sure the girl is confirmed dead, a cold voice replied. The Obsidian representative. Devon looked at Elena. He didn't say, I love you. The promise of violence he was about to inflict on her behalf said it for him. He kicked the door open. The wood splintered with a thunderous crack. Meeting adjourned. Devon snarled. Enzo sat behind the massive desk, a glass of scotch in hand. The Obsidian rep stood by the window. Before their guards could raise their rifles, Devon dropped the nearest one with 2 shots to the chest and dove behind the grand piano as the room erupted in gunfire. "Elena, go!" Devon shouted, providing suppressing fire. Elena didn't run for cover. She ran for the desk. Enzo shrieked, scrambling underneath it as bullets shredded his leather chair. Elena slid across the polished floor, her fingers instantly finding the keyboard. The screen flashed red. "Transfer in progress, 90%. "Kill her!" the Obsidian rep yelled, pulling a submachine gun from his briefcase. He aimed directly at Elena's exposed back. Devon didn't think. He broke cover, sprinting across the open room to put his body between the gun and the girl. Zip, zip, zip. 3 rounds caught Devon in the chest. The impact knocked the wind out of him, cracking ribs, but he stayed upright just long enough to fire a single, fatal shot into the rep's forehead. "Devon!" Elena screamed as he crumpled to one knee. "Type!" he roared, blood staining his teeth. "Finish it!" Enzo crawled out from under the desk, seeing Devon down. He raised his pistol, aiming at the back of Elena's head. "Game over, bitch!" Elena didn't turn. She hit enter. Reverse routing initiated. Target, Obsidian_Global_Holdings. Status, draining. "What did you do?" Enzo gasped, staring at the screen as the bar turned blue. "I bankrupted you," Elena said coldly, spinning the chair around. Enzo pulled the trigger. Click! He stared at the gun in horror. "Electronic firing pin," Elena said, her voice steady. "I just disabled every smart weapon in the building via the local Wi-Fi. You really should update your firmware, Enzo." Enzo screamed in incoherent rage and lunged at her, but a hand, heavy and battered, grabbed his throat from behind. Devon stood up, wheezing but alive. He lifted Enzo off the ground with one hand, walking him backward toward the shattered, floor-to-ceiling window. "I gave you a kingdom," Devon whispered into his traitorous ear, "and you sold it for spare change." "Dom, please!" "Goodbye, brother." Devon threw him. Enzo's scream was lost to the wind as he fell 85 stories to the pavement below. Silence reclaimed the room. Devon swayed, and Eleanor was there instantly, catching him. "You're shot!" she cried, tearing at his vest. "Kevlar held," Devon winced, touching his bruised ribs. "I'll live." He looked up at the wall screen. Obsidian Group. Balance, $0. Valenti account. Balance, plus $1, 200 million. "You stole $1 billion, Devon breathed, looking at her with awe. "I told you," Elena whispered, wiping a smudge of dirt from his cheek. "I'm good at cleaning up messes." Devon laughed, a painful, raspy sound. He tangled his hand in her hair, pulling her face down to his. "No more janitor closets, Elena Hale. You want to rewrite the world? You do it from here, by my side." "Is that a job offer?" she teased, tears spilling over. "It's a proposal," Devon said. "Be my queen." Elena kissed him. It tasted of copper and victory. System accepted. 6 months later, the gala at the Valenti Tower was the event of the decade. The elite of Chicago mingled under the truce of the Valenti flag, terrified and awed by the resurrected empire. Devon Valenti stood on the balcony, a glass of champagne in hand. The glass doors opened, and a woman stepped out. She wore a gown of midnight blue silk, embroidered with silver thread, that resembled cascading binary code. She radiated power. She wasn't Violet, the janitor. She was Mrs. Valenti, the architect. "The senator wants to know if we can help with his election discrepancy," Elena said, handing Devon a tablet. "Can we?" "Already done. And I found his hidden offshore accounts, just in case he forgets who put him in office." Devon smiled, tossing the tablet onto a chair. He pulled his wife into his arms. Below them, the city of Chicago glittered, a massive circuit board of lights, and they controlled the switch. "You know," Devon murmured, kissing her neck, "I fired the new cleaning crew today." "Why?" "They missed a spot." Elena laughed, the sound ringing out over the city. "Don't worry, boss, I'll handle it." And that is how the woman who mopped the floors ended up owning the building. From the dust of a janitor's closet to the diamond-studded skyline of Chicago, Violet, Elena, proved that in a world of brute force, the sharpest weapon is the mind. Devon thought he was saving a damsel, but she saved him from a fall that would have shattered his empire. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? The quiet people in the background of your life. What kind of power are they hiding? Maybe the person cleaning your office holds the key to the next billion-dollar empire.